Hello and welcome to our weekly roundup of all things royal on TalkTV. So pop the kettle on. This is The Royalty. I'm Sarah Hewson. Coming up on the show today, do Harry and Meghan really need a 7-car convoy as the couple arrive in New York? Plus controversy for the Crown. There's outrage over the news that Princess Diana is set to appear as a ghost in the final series of the hit Netflix show. Joining me today to discuss all of that and much more are royal commentator and TalkTV regular Afua Hagan and The Sun's royal editor Matt Wilkinson. Hello to both of you. First, before all that, though, we want to start on something rather more serious and the situation in Israel and Gaza. Senior royals have joined the growing list of leaders to condemn Saturday's devastating terror attack on Israel by Hamas. The King has said to be appalled by the barbaric acts. The Prince and Princess of Wales have utterly condemned the events, saying they had left them profoundly distressed. And the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have said they stand against all acts of terrorism and brutality. Matt, I'll come to you on this because the comments from the King came during a briefing that you were at Buckingham Palace. Very, very carefully worded statements that we've seen from the royal households.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there were lots of people wondering when the King might speak out about what happened in Gaza and Israel, particularly as he is someone who's been very much involved in the Middle East. He's all over the politics of the Middle East. He knows a lot of the leaders, and he's obviously visited Israel a few years ago. But we were at a briefing talking about a trip, the royal trip to Kenya, and we did ask his team whether the King would be saying anything. And that was the first time that the palace actually decided that the King would be commenting. He said, obviously, that he's watching events very closely, and it was only later in the day, I think, after he had spoken to the President of Israel and also the King of Jordan, that there was actually a fully worded statement that came out with the very strong words. But I think lots of people were wanting the King to say something, and it did take 2 or 3 days before he actually did enter into what is a really, really difficult politically and humanitarian incident to actually, to get points across on.
And as you said, he had visited Israel and also the West Bank in 2020. The Prince of Wales had also visited the region in 2018, and we heard him reflect on that in the statement from him and the Princess of Wales, Afua.
And, we always talk about how the royal family have to remain apolitical. And actually, I think they have, all of them, with these statements by talking about the humanitarian crisis, talking about the human tragedy that's really at the centre of this whole thing on both sides. And I think that's right for them to, talk about their past experiences, visiting the region, but to focus on the utter devastation, the humanitarian crisis that has occurred and is growing, and the loss of life, the huge loss of life in the region, and to express their distress and their upset about that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Prince and Princess of Wales's statement talking about the horrors inflicted by Hamas's terrorist attack upon Israel, that they condemned them. And they say, as Israel exercises its right of self-defence, all Israelis and Palestinians will continue to be stalked by grief, fear and anger in the time to come. Acknowledgement of the suffering on both sides.
Well, also, don't forget, a lot of British people have died. So, if we're calling it a terrorist attack, a lot of British people have died when you compare to terrorist attacks that have happened in the UK. So it was right that the King and the future King put these strong words out.
And also Harry and Meghan, a statement published on their Archwell website, Afua.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about their devastation, talking about seeing what's happening there, talking about the grief that they feel. And like I said, I think it's right that all of them are looking at more the humanitarian side of it, trying to remain apolitical, which is very difficult in a situation that has been the Palestinian and Israeli conflict has been going for so long, for such a long time. But at the centre of this, there's some really terrible human stories. So the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and Archwell Foundation putting out, a statement there. And they are a humanitarian organisation. They do philanthropy and good work. So we can expect them on that level to put out a statement about their distress about what they're seeing.
Matt, is there a certain protocol about the order in which these statements do come out when you have something as serious as this?
Yeah, and as I say, that's why it was so interesting that it took several days before the King said anything. And I think it was important that the government acted first. So we had Sunak and I think James Cleverly had just gone to Israel that day. And I think they were waiting protocol-wise until the government had made all the proper statements and put out all the lines that they were concerned about what happened in Israel before the King issued. And remember, it wasn't, the King didn't actually say these words, it was by a spokesman. So it wasn't a situation where the King issued a statement in his words or stood up at a press conference or anything like that and said these words. It was read on his behalf. So we still have time, if it descends, if it gets even worse, for the King to make a greater intervention. But after the King's spokesman had issued this statement to us, which it was covered widely, then it was the future King issued his statement, and then shortly afterwards, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, on behalf of Archewell and themselves, then put out their statement. I'm not sure there was communication between Archewell and the palace, but that they seemed to adhere to the protocol as well, so that was welcome.
Let's talk about Harry and Meghan a little more now, because the Duke and Duchess of Sussex hosted their first ever in-person event for their Archewell Foundation for World Mental Health Day in New York. But it was their journey there which caught the eye, with a 7-car convoy escorting them to the event. It came just 5 months after what they had called a near-catastrophic car chase in Manhattan. There's been much dispute and much discussion over whether indeed it was a near-catastrophic car chase affair, but a 7-car convoy to take them a couple of blocks, was it, to this event?
Yeah.
And there have been eyebrows raised saying, you know, is that environmentally appropriate? I mean, no one wanted a repeat of what happened earlier on this year, did they?
Absolutely not. No one wants a repeat of that at all. 7-car convoy, you know, whether they were being a bit overzealous or whether they were being careful, I think the main thing is that they knew all eyes were going to be on them on this trip. And like you said, they absolutely did not want a repeat of what happened earlier on this year, only 5 months ago. But actually on this particular occasion, I think actually talking about what they were there for should be the main focus. And we knew that when they were in New York, it was going to be all about the manoeuvres and how they got to places and what would happen so we didn't have a repeat. But World Mental Health Day, talking about the effects on social media, on young people that have led to young people taking their lives, I think was a really, really, really important conversation to be had. Carson Daly was there as well. And, you know, Meghan saying that she's been moved to tears by some of the stories they'd heard from the families talking about the effects on social media, talking about her role as mum, knowing that Lilibet and Archie, although they're not yet at that age, it's fast approaching. And, you know, myself as a mum with an 11-year-old, I know what that fear is like. But I also know what it's like to be on the receiving end of nastiness on social media, and so I think
Meghan does.
Yeah,
certainly.
I mean, massively. You know, people who are keyboard warriors who don't have anything better to do than bash people because they're different, because they have opinions, because they're wearing something they don't like. So I think it's a really, really, really important conversation that they were having. The effects on social media on young people are huge, and actually on all of us as well.
And they were calling for greater controls on social media, weren't they, Matt? And Meghan talked about being moved to tears by some of the conversations that they've been having over the course of the last year with families who have lost children to suicide after they had suffered social media abuse.
Yeah, look, it's an authentic space for them to get into because they have spoken about the abuse that they received on social media, and I think they closed down their social media accounts or they've not used their social media accounts. I mean, they were speaking as parents as well. So, I mean, we can talk about this, but they weren't representing the royal family in any way. They were representing themselves as parents and members of Archewell in an arena that they have spoken out against and for since they left the royal family. So it's also something that that Harry he was involved in mental health issues and mental health charities when he was a working royal as well. So they're very well versed in it. And I think, you know, to give them some credit, they were authentic along those lines.
Yeah, well, I mean, and he has spoken openly about his own mental health struggles, hasn't he, after losing his mother, also from what he's seen in Afghanistan, and now speaking as parents. Let's have a listen to Meghan talking about her fears over the dangers of social media and how they may affect her own children in the future.
Being a mom is the most important thing in my entire life, and outside, of course, being a wife to this one. But I will say I feel fortunate that our children are at an age, again, quite young, so this isn't in our immediate future. But I also feel frightened by how it's continuing to change, and this will be in front of us. As they say, being a parent, the days are long, but the years are short. So it worries me, but I'm also given a lot of hope and a lot of energy by the progress we've made in the past year.
We also saw the Prince and Princess of Wales out today, and we've just been talking about parents losing children to suicide because of mental health issues. And there was a beautiful acknowledgement of one such tragic case this week from the Princess of Wales, Afua.
Another incredibly important event that the Prince and Princess of Wales were at on Mental Health Day. And earlier on this year, the Princess of Wales was given a pair of earrings, and these earrings are by Sussexes. They're gorgeous star-shaped earrings. They come in 18-karat gold and white gold. They're really, really beautiful. And she said she would keep them and wear them for a special occasion. And she wore them earlier on in this week at an engagement where they were talking again about mental health on World Mental Health Day. They did a panel and they were talking to parents again who'd lost their children to suicide. Absolutely terrible. And she wore these earrings as you know, that she'd planned to this event, and these earrings were given to her by a mum who lost her daughter Izzy to suicide. And the earrings are by Sussexes, and £5 from the sales of the earrings goes to charity, which I think is amazing. Brave Minds charity, and, you know, the mum talks about the daughter, Izzy. You know, they said that she was suffering from depression, but she was also owning life. You know, she was playing rugby and she had lots of friends and they thought she was on top of things, but unfortunately she was depressed and she wasn't. And that's a story that so many parents, actually so many people hear when a suicide occurs, you know, how much they weren't expecting it. So it was brilliant of Kate, first of all, to remember that she had these earrings.
Because the mum had given them to her during a visit to Maidenhead Rugby Club.
Yeah, earlier on this year.
Hadn't she? And Kate had said to her, I will wear these. Yeah. And then she'd chosen World Mental Health Day
to wear them.
The moment to wear them.
And I think that was brilliant.
The power of the Princess of Wales there to draw attention to something like this. Matt, you were there.
Yeah, I was there. It was a wonderful engagement, to be honest. It was like a reboot of their Heads Together charity, which they'd set up with Harry back in 2016, pre-Meghan. There was no mention of Harry's involvement in Heads Together, but it was a really nice launch. It was an hour and a half with some really wonderful young people that had had mental health problems, and it's about they're talking about breaking the stigma and taboo, and they've been doing great work all week. But with the earrings, I was told initially, as soon as I got there, one of the team members said, just to let you know that these are said earrings, you know, she's wearing them specially as a tribute, but because she had such wonderful long hair, we couldn't see the earrings, so it wasn't sort of about 45 minutes into the engagement that we actually got sight of the earrings. So maybe, you know, maybe next time she could wear something on her hands. I don't know. It was very tricky, but it was a lovely touch. It's what she does. It's those gentle kind of... everything the royal members of the royal family wear, it's often done with a message. Yeah. They'll often wear colours for some kind of reason, or they'll wear a brooch that the late Queen maybe gave to them, or something from a certain country or something like that to reference the engagement they're at. But if it was lovely. You know, the fact that I think we would have recognised, I think we would have seen them because we were aware of these earrings, but she wanted people to know that that's why she was wearing them, and it was really nice.
Not just on any day.
Yeah.
She also gave a speech at the event, and then the following day we saw her at Nottingham Trent University, and she talked about her own times as a student and how she'd love to be a student again.
Wouldn't we all? Carefree
Simple
days
life.
at St
Oh,
Andrews,
it's exhausting.
hanging out with a young Prince William, having a lovely time at St Andrews University. I mean, I can imagine it. No, she talked about how much she enjoyed her extracurricular activities, and I think what she was talking about is how, as a young person, you can use sport, you can use hobbies and stuff like that to really help with your mental health, and that's what she was getting across.
Photography and how she
photography,
had
art.
access to that at St Andrews.
Yeah.
Now, hit Netflix series The Crown is never too far away from controversy, is it? But the announcement this week that the first episodes of its 6th and final season will air in November has caused quite a stir. The final series will cover the death of Princess Diana in 1997. But there are also reports that Diana will further feature in scenes as a ghost. Afua, what do you make of this? We haven't seen it yet.
No, we haven't.
So we're relying on reports on this. What do we know?
The final season was always going to be explosive. It was always going to be the one covers the death of Princess Diana and also the start of William and Kate's relationship at St Andrews. It's going to be split into 2 parts. So we have the first part, I think it's first 4 episodes on the 16th of November and the next 6 episodes on the 14th of November. You can see how December, sorry. You can see how we get confused there. And yes, you know, this is it. This is it for The Crown, so they say. There won't be any more seasons after this. The trailer shows sort of our evolution of the Queen through the different actresses that have played her, ending on Imelda Staunton there, looking quite pensive as a Queen, looking out over Buckingham Palace. Princess Diana appearing as a ghost. I'm not sure how a lot of people are going to feel about that. That has caused a lot of controversy, but we haven't seen it. We don't know how it will be done, how well or not well that will be handled. But what we do know is this final 10 episodes of The Crown is going to be juicy, to say the least.
Netflix sources are describing it as the inner dialogue, so she's supposed to appear before the then Prince of Wales, Charles, after her death, to thank him for appearing to be sad.
Yeah. There's been lots of talk about The Crown over the last couple of years, saying that people think that it might be almost like a documentary, or that they might believe certain storylines, and you know it's a fictional dramatisation, and it never has it been born so true that it's a fictional dramatisation because they're having Princess Diana as a ghost. I don't believe that happened, and I don't think the viewers will believe that happened.
She also appears before the Queen.
Before the Queen as well, yeah. And you know, it's a dramatisation, and they're just trying to get storylines across, and they're trying to talk about some kind of forgiveness and stuff like that during her talks with Charles and the Queen. I'm looking forward to it. I think the royal family are a lot more relaxed about it now than they were. I think people do understand that it's not real life, but it's just a dramatisation.
The Queen was hosting Helena Bonham Carter at Clarence House this week, who of course played Princess Margaret.
Yep, she's also quite friends. She's met several times the actress who played her in the last series 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I can't remember the actress's name, but they've met several times and they've been pictured together. They're much more relaxed about it. The message has got across that you know that it isn't real, and we just kind of enjoy it as a kind of historical piece.
But
exactly.
This series, which we know because we've seen images from filming on the set, that we will see, if not the moment of the crash, we see the wreckage of the Mercedes car in which Diana lost her life, and then this ghost of Diana. How difficult will that be for William and Harry in particular, or do they accept that this is a drama and there's nothing they can do about it?
I mean, I think they absolutely accept that it's a drama and it's not a documentary, but it doesn't mean to say that it won't be triggering for both of them. You know, to see that depicted on screen in any way, whether it's an investigative piece about, you know, how their mother died, or whether it is The Crown, it's going to be tough for them to see that, absolutely. So, yeah, I think it will be triggering for them, definitely.
I mean, I'm assuming they probably won't be watching.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, Harry said in the past, he did an interview a couple of years ago, and he was in America, and he said that some elements of The Crown were true. So he'd obviously seen some episodes. Princess Anne's seen some episodes. She quite liked the character who played her. And I'm pretty sure the Queen has seen some episodes. Yeah, I don't think Harry and William will particularly like the idea of their mother being portrayed in that matter.
It's probably not something the King's going to sit down to watch, though, is it?
No. No.
Later this month, King Charles and Queen Camilla will travel to Kenya on a state visit, and the King will confront Britain's colonial past here. It is his first Commonwealth visit there as King, and he will acknowledge Britain's torture of Mau Mau rebels in the 1950s. Matt, you've been to the briefing about this state visit. How significant is this, the content of this visit and the acknowledgement of Britain's role?
Yeah, so there will be elements of this 4-day trip which will reflect on and also bring up and talk about what happened in the emergency, they called it, or the Mau Mau uprising of the 50s and early 60s. We need to be careful that every time a member of the royal family goes abroad that it becomes like an apology tour or something that talks about a historical atrocity that the country has committed or has been accused of, or that needs to resolve. In Kenya, the population of Nairobi, the average age is 19. So this tour is obviously going to reflect on what happened in the 50s. There's going to be a speech. He's going to make He's going to make an address at a banquet where he's going to talk about what happened in the 50s. But this is something that we're looking forward. So we're going to be going to lots of kind of young startups. We're going to be lots of young people, and the president has a very good relationship. He attended the coronation, he attended the funeral, and while they will be looking back briefly, I'm surprised there aren't more events in the itinerary that I've seen that do actually delve into the issues that happened in the 50s. But the way the itinerary is going to work is they're going to be looking at maybe more the relationship between Britain and Kenya now. So they will refer to the past, but it's going to look towards the present and the future, and that's what they're keen to get across. I think the first day, when I've seen on the itinerary, is going to heavily draw on the events. And the important thing about this, actually, is that previously, when William and Catherine have went to Caribbean, for instance,
which is exactly what I'm thinking.
Or Charles went
the lessons that potentially have
Charles
been learned.
Charles went to Ghana. These were we're talking about events that were long in history. The Mau Mau and the events in Kenya happened when Charles was alive, and also when his mother was queen. So it's much more important, it's much more relevant that he is there in Kenya, and it's more difficult for him now because it happened in his lifetime and his mother's reign.
Afua?
This is the 60th anniversary of Kenyan independence from the British Empire, as it were. And I think it is important, actually, yes, that he goes there, that he acknowledges what happened during the emergency, what happened to the Mau Mau rebels. But I think it also is important that Kenya has this opportunity to look forward because, like you said, it's a country with a very young population. It's a country with huge potential and amazing things going on in the ground. And I think by King Charles and Queen Camilla going there, it can showcase that to the rest of the world. And I think that is hugely important. However, I do think it's important to acknowledge what happened in the past. And I think it's important that our apologies are given where they are given.
And I'm sure that there will be other Commonwealth countries watching this very, very closely.
Definitely.
Indeed.
Absolutely. It's interesting that Kenya was picked as the first Commonwealth country for King Charles and Queen Camilla to go to. And you're right, there will be other countries in the Commonwealth and within the realms looking at how this visit goes and looking at the optics that come out of it.
There is poignancy about this being the first visit, isn't it, though? Because it is the first state visit to a Commonwealth country by the King, and it was in Kenya that his mother became queen.
It did. She went to bed at Treetops Hotel as a princess and came down a queen. I won't be breaching any secrets, but I don't believe we'll be going to Treetops. Unfortunately, that won't be something that they can actually get into the project. But they will refer to it. It will be part of the trip, but unfortunately we won't actually be going to that spot.
So a trip to reflect on the past, but also look to the future. And finally, how would you like to own a little piece of royal history? Well, a never-before-seen drawing by, at that point, a very young Princess Elizabeth is up for auction. It was sent to the Peter Pan author J.M. Barrie and is accompanied by a letter from the Queen Mother, who describes the crown drawing of a house as very poor. The starting bid is $1,800. Do either of you fancy a bid? Afua, just tell us a little bit more about this drawing.
So this is a drawing that Princess Elizabeth, as she was, Queen Elizabeth II, as she was known, did of Great Ormond Street Hospital in red crown. I think it's a great likeness, to be honest. I think she nailed the essence of the building. The Queen Mother sent it to Jane Barry, saying, "Sorry, this is a bit poor, but here you go."
I never knew she was an artist.
Neither did she.
Yeah, Charles very much is.
Yes.
Maybe that's where he's got it from.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just the rather less than impressed mother, the Queen Mother.
But haven't we all done that?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm sorry, but she's insisted that I send this to you. Anyway, we'll have to watch to see just how much that fetches at auction. That is all we've got time for this week. My thanks to Afua and Matt. And don't forget, if you want to join in with the debate, make sure you leave a comment. We'll be back next week with all of the latest on the royal family. We hope you can join us, and we'll see you then.